I touched my nephew and I liked it. There, I said it. Now let me explain how a 45-year-old woman found herself in a situation she never imagined possible. My name is Monica, and this is the story of how a playful afternoon turned into a night of passion that changed everything. Are you ready to hear the unfiltered truth? It was just another family gathering, or so I thought. My sister and her husband were visiting with their son, my nephew Jake. We were all catching up in the living room, sharing stories and laughter. I remember the warm afternoon sun streaming through the windows, casting a golden glow on everything. Jake had grown so much since I'd last seen him, no longer the awkward teenager, but a handsome young man of 22. As we chatted, I found my eyes drawn to Jake more and more. The way his eyes crinkled when he laughed, how animated he became when talking about his passions. Suddenly, I saw him in a new light. It wasn't just familial affection anymore. There was an undeniable spark of attraction. The realization hit me like a punch to the gut. My heart started racing, and I felt a flush creeping up my neck. How could I be feeling this way about my own nephew? I tried to push the thoughts away, to focus on the conversation, but my mind kept wandering. I noticed little details I'd never paid attention to before, the curve of his jawline, the strength in his hands as he gesticulated. The conflict inside me was intense. On one hand, I felt disgusted with myself for even considering Jake in that way. He was family, for goodness sake. But on the other hand, I couldn't deny the physical response my body was having. My skin tingled with awareness every time he moved near me. As the evening wore on, the tension built. I found myself both dreading and anticipating any moment of closeness. When Jake got up to help clear the dishes, I offered to assist, desperate for a distraction. In the kitchen, we worked side by side, the small space amplifying my heightened senses. Then it happened. As Jake reached past me to put away a glass, his arm brushed against mine. It was the briefest of touches, completely innocent, but in that moment, electricity shot through me. Our eyes met, and for a split second, I saw a flicker of something in his gaze too. Was it just my imagination, or did he feel it as well? That touch, that look, it ignited something I couldn't ignore. As we rejoined the others, my mind was in turmoil. How could I face my family, knowing the thoughts that were now racing through my head? The internal struggle had only just begun, and I had no idea where it would lead me. Have you ever felt an attraction so powerful it overrode every moral compass you thought you had? As the rest of the family dispersed, leaving Jake and me alone, I faced the ultimate test of willpower, one I wasn't sure I wanted to pass. The house fell quiet as the front door closed behind my sister and brother-in-law. Jake and I stood in the living room, an awkward silence settling between us. I busied myself straightening throw pillows, hyper-aware of his presence just feet away. My heart raced as I debated my next move. Part of me screamed to maintain boundaries, to remember he was my nephew. But another part, fueled by a primal desire, urged me to seize this moment alone. I rationalized that we were both consenting adults, that no one would ever know. The conflict raged in my mind as I turned to face Jake. Our eyes met, and I saw a reflection of my own longing. The power dynamic shifted. I was older, more experienced, but in that moment, I felt vulnerable under his gaze. I took a step closer, my breath catching as Jake didn't back away. My logical mind fought against the flood of chemicals urging me forward. I knew the risks, the potential consequences for our family, but the thrill of the forbiddens heightened every sensation. My skin tingled with anticipation as I closed the distance between us. Time seemed to slow as I leaned in. Jake's eyes widened, but he didn't pull away. Our lips met in a tentative kiss that quickly deepened. Electricity coursed through me, igniting a passion I hadn't felt in years. My body responded instinctively, pressing closer as Jake's arms encircled me. Guilt and desire warred within me as we kissed. I knew it was wrong, yet it felt undeniably right. The intensity of the moment overwhelmed my senses, drowning out the voice of reason. As we broke apart, breathless, I saw a mix of shock and want in Jake's eyes. "We shouldn't," I whispered, even as my hands gripped his shirt. "I know," Jake replied, his voice husky, "but I don't want to stop." Those words broke the last of my resolve. As we came together again in a passionate embrace, I knew we had crossed a line we could never uncross. The floodgates had opened, and I was powerless to stop what would come next. The floodgates had opened, and what came next defied everything I thought I knew about desire. Have you ever experienced a pleasure so intense it felt like your body was betraying your mind? That's exactly what happened as Jake and I gave in to our forbidden passion dot as our kisses deepened. We stumbled towards the bedroom, a tangle of limbs and racing hearts. Reaching the bed, we paused, the reality of what we were about to do hitting us both. Jake's hands trembled slightly as he reached for me, and I saw a flicker of uncertainty in his eyes. I felt it too, a moment of hesitation, a last chance to turn back, but the magnetic pull between us was too strong to resist. I pulled Jake close, our bodies pressing together as months of pent-up tension finally found release. We undressed each other slowly, savoring every touch, every revealed inch of skin. The initial awkwardness melted away, replaced by a burning need that consumed us both. As we explored each other's bodies, I was struck by how heightened every sensation felt. The taboo nature of our encounter seemed to amplify everything. Each caress sent shockwaves through me, each kiss left me breathless. I lost myself in the rhythm of our lovemaking, waves of pleasure building to a crescendo I'd never experienced before. At the height of our passion, I felt a connection with Jake that transcended the physical. It was as if we tapped into something primal, a raw energy that bound us together. The intensity was almost overwhelming, pleasure intertwining with a complex swirl of emotions: desire, guilt, liberation, shame. As we reached our climax together, I was hit with a rush of sensation so powerful it brought tears to my eyes. In that moment, all the barriers between us, age, family ties, societal norms, seemed to dissolve. We were simply two people sharing an incredibly intimate connection. In the aftermath, as we lay tangled in sheets and each other's arms, reality slowly began to creep back in. The enormity of what we'd done settled over us like a heavy blanket. I knew there would be consequences, that things could never be the same. But as I looked at Jake, still flushed and breathless beside me, I couldn't bring myself to regret it. Not yet, anyway.